Hi, my name is Darren Gabbert. I am a photographer here at 345 Auction. You can find us at 345auction.com. And something near and dear to my heart is going to be coming up soon in an auction, which is several very nice cameras. This happens to be one. This is a Rolleiflex twin lens reflex camera. The serial number is right here on top of the nameplate. And the serial number tells us that this camera was built in 1954. And besides its beautiful design, one of the things that is really interesting about this particular camera is that you could actually look through the lens and focus based upon what you saw through the lens. A lot of the cameras at the time did not allow for direct viewing through the lens. Now, the way it did that was it would bounce the light, or the whatever you're going to shoot comes through the lens, and then you have a focus hood. Now, you have to look down from the top, and so what you usually saw when people were using this was they would hold it at their waist or perhaps at their belly button, and they would look down to the top. There's a focusing screen right here. I don't know if you can see it, but that would allow you to see exactly what the lens saw, and then you could focus and get exactly what you had wanted to put in your picture. With other cameras that had a viewfinder that was not attached to the lens specifically, it was kind of a hit and miss thing, whether or not you would actually get everything that you wanted in your picture. If you went to a family gathering, you might get all the people there in the frame except for Uncle Bob, and he's half there and half not. So this was, at the time, a very interesting camera with very beautiful design. Now, along with the twin lens reflex and the focusing on the top, this particular camera, this style of camera, had film that ran vertically up and down in this particular way. It is what's known as a medium format camera. It takes either 200 or 220 film. It's much bigger than, let's say, a 35 millimeter film. And it tends to give better resolution, better quality when you do enlarging. Now, the wind-up mechanism is on this side. The focusing, if you'll notice right here, the plate goes in and out. The focusing is done right here. And again, you look down the top to see where you're going to shoot, what you're going to shoot, and then you pull the trigger, push the trigger, I guess I should say, which is right there, and you take your shot. Now, this camera, being from 1954, is possibly in not the best condition. Now, the glass itself on the lens is very good. There's a Carl Zeiss lens here on the bottom. It is a Carl Zeiss Tressar lens, and then here on the top, that is a Heidsiemat. Heidsiemat, yes, there we go. And these both would work together in order to give you the shot that you wanted. There are some condition issues here on the side. Some of this vulcanite siding has peeled off in the back or on the side here. There are a few issues with rust over here. However, inside, the condition is actually very good. And so what you see here is almost pristine conditions on the inside. I do know that the shutter works, but I am not entirely certain if it works the way it should. We don't have the ability to test film cameras here. We don't know if it works well. We don't know if it gives the kinds of shots that you would expect from a Rolleiflex, but it is, in fact, a Rolleiflex. And you can still get film for this kind of a camera. Some of the cameras that I'm going to show you today, you can no longer get film for. So this is going to be up for auction in the near future. You can go to 345auction.com and find the link to the actual auction. There will be a description of this particular camera so that you can see when it was built and any other details that are interesting. And if you need more information, you can always give us another call, or or email us at 345auction.com. Okay, that's the first of the cameras, and I want to show you this one then. This is really something. This is a Polaroid Model 100 camera. Okay, and in a similar fashion to early Polaroids, it also has. Let me get the stand out. It also has bellows, and what that means is that you can do some interesting tilt shift options here. Now, the Model 100 is a roll film camera, which is very interesting for Polaroid. Polaroid essentially had two different kinds of cameras. They had the very first cameras, which were roll film, and then starting in 1960 and 61, they moved from roll film into what is known as pack film, and that's the kind of Polaroid film that most of us are used to. It comes in a kind of a plastic square. We slide it in, and then we pull the shots out as we take them. This is a roll film camera. Not only is it a roll film camera, but it is possibly the rarest of the Polaroid roll film cameras made. Polaroid made their first model, which was Model 95 in 1948. The first run was only 50 cameras, and they sold those out on the first day. It was a hit. Right? Now, this one is a variation of the Model 95A. And if you look up Polaroid land camera Model 100, more than likely what you are going to see is Polaroid Model 100 automatic. And that is a pack film camera. It was Polaroid's very first pack film. This is the roll film. I'll get to what that means here in a second. Beautiful condition. This is really something. The bellows appear to be light tight to me. I haven't found any light leakage. There are a few places where some of the leather on the points has rubbed off, but again, it's all very light tight. And you can see that the glass, maybe you can't, I don't know. Yeah, well, anyway, the glass is free of scratches. It doesn't have any fungus or any mold on it. The inside is very good, especially inside the bellows. And let me show you what the roll film actually entailed. As you open this up, both of these sides come open, and the film itself, and this was again the very first type of film that Polaroid had. It was a roll film, and it came in two pieces. There was a smaller roll over here, which was the negative side, and this is where the shot was actually taken. And then there was a positive side over here. So you would open up the bag, you would take out the rolls, you would put them in here. It had a long paper leader on it. And what you would do is you would take the paper leader and lay it off to this side. You would close this door, which gave the paper leader which made the paper leader come out to this side. You would then close this door, making sure that it's closed in both top and bottom, and then the paper leader would be sticking out here. You would pull that out, and you would be ready to go. Now, here is the really interesting thing about this style of camera. When you would shoot, the negative was right here. As you would pull the film out, it would roll the negative onto the positive. The positive actually is the picture that you get at the end. It would come up to this point here. You would wait 60 seconds, and then you would open this up. There would be a white piece of paper right here that you would peel off, and that would be your Polaroid picture. Now, the interesting thing, and this is what I love about the design, is that as you pulled the photo through the rollers and the emulsion began to work and develop your Polaroid picture, it would not only bring the picture that you just took here, it would also index another shot right here, ready to go. And so as soon as you develop this particular shot here, you wanted to take another one, you would take it, you would pull out the leader that was here, and the process would continue until you ran out of film. It was a wonderful design. Now, on the inside of this particular, let me do this a little bit different. On the inside of this particular camera, there is a little rust right here, some corrosion, and a little corrosion right there. Oh, there we go, right there on the plate. But it's not bad. It could be easily cleaned up. Now, the sad thing is, they no longer make film for this camera. There are some places that keep stock, or various stocks of Polaroid roll film, but they are few and far between, and as the years go by, that film becomes a little bit more delicate and it degrades. And so whether or not you can actually find film to go in here is going to be a dicey proposition. This is mostly a collector's gem. It is in excellent condition, and I've seen references that say that this particular camera was only they only made about 10,000 copies or fewer, and it was made also in 1954, the same as the Rolleiflex. And this is, like I said, a beautiful camera, inside and out. If you are a Polaroid collector, then this would be kind of a dream. Oh, wait a minute, got to get that down there. This would be a dream camera because you don't find these very often. This actually, and I found this to be interesting, the Polaroid 100, Model 100 actually came as a kit. It had flash bulbs and various flash attachments, and it was intended to be used for ID, making ID pictures. However, that does not mean that this is a lesser quality or that it takes lower quality pictures than, let's say, a 95. It actually does take, from what I understand, I don't have the experience with this camera, but from what I understand, it does take excellent pictures. Now, with the roll camera, the Polaroid roll film, there were three different categories of film. There was Series 40, there was Series 30, and there was Series 20. This was a Series 40 camera, and you could use either Film 42 or Film 47, Polaroid Film 47 in this particular camera. Now, the next camera is this beauty here. This is a Graflex. A Graflex Crown Graphic Special. It was built in 1961, and it has quite an impressive list of cameras that went in front of it. It comes out of Rochester, New York. Now, if Rochester, New York sounds familiar to you as it relates to photography, that's where Kodak was based. And yes, Kodak did in fact own Graflex for a little while, but it was spun off. And you can actually get film for this camera as well. Now, the interesting thing for this particular, the lens is in excellent condition. It's a Schneider Kreuznach lens. Let's see, what does it say? It doesn't, 135 millimeter lens. And the interesting thing about this camera and cameras in the same lineage as the Graflex is that they are professional cameras, absolutely. Portrait photographers would use them. And this was from, let's say, 1930 to 1960, this was the premier, or maybe not this particular one, but cameras from Graflex, they were the premier camera for news gathering. You know, pretty much anybody that you saw who was with a news organization, who was taking pictures for a newspaper, would carry a Graflex camera. And in fact, the Graflex went to war. One of the most interesting photographs that a Graflex camera captured was the raising of the American flag on Mount Suribachi. And it was captured by a fellow named Joe Rosenthal, who was a lifelong news photographer, and he was working for AP at the time. He actually tried to become a military photographer for the Army, and his eyesight was too bad, so he didn't qualify. He went to war as an AP photographer and used a Graflex speed graphic in order to take that particular picture. If you see any iconic news photograph in the United States from, let's say again, between 1930 and 1960, it was probably taken on a Graflex camera. Now, this Graflex camera is interesting because it has a rangefinder viewport that gives you very accurate focusing. And you can also focus on the back here. This is what's known as ground glass. This was one of the few styles, and this is a 4x5 format. It's very large. It's definitely considered a large format camera. And this particular camera allows you to look through. You could open up the shutter and keep it open and look through here, focus your camera, get it all set the way you want, and then what you would do is you would move this over, you would slide a plate in, you would take your picture, and then you would pull it out, and if you needed to, you would put another plate in for another photograph. Now, these also had, this one doesn't have it, but these cameras also had a focusing hood very similar to this one, this kind of a style that was mounted on the back, and it would give you a clearer picture. It would cut down the light pollution coming in. It would give you a clear picture of the ground glass there. But then it also had a rangefinder, which was really, really cool. Let's see, what else? Oh, I found out a bit of trivia, and I had no idea about this, which seems strange to me, but the flash units that would come with this were very big. They were round, they were long, they were about so long, and then they had the flash attachment up here. And when they made the very first Star Wars, Luke Skywalker's lightsaber was a flash unit. The grip was the flash unit for a Graflex. I find it very interesting. Anyway, this is also in excellent condition. The bellows are near perfect. And because they still make film for this particular camera, you could certainly use this camera. It's not so much a collector's piece as it is a very interesting camera to own. I would love to own it, but I think it will probably go for a little bit more money than I can afford. And that brings me now to the very last of the 4 cameras that I want to show you today, which is, stop that, which is this one. This is a gorgeous camera. It is a Leica. And when this came into the shop, Scott, the other photographer, and I, we looked at it and went, oh my God, this is a gorgeous camera. And it is. It's a beautiful camera. It comes with the original Leica leather case, and the case is actually in excellent condition. There are just a few places where there are some scratches, but for the most part, it is wonderful. The leather keeper on this side has been broken, but everything else is in excellent condition here. Now let's take a look at the camera. I'm going to do a complete video just on this particular camera, and I want to talk about the process of due diligence that we go through here at 345 Auction in order to assure you that when we say that this is a particular kind of object, in this case a Leica camera, that it is in fact a Leica camera, and that it is in fact the camera that we say it is. Now, this particular camera, according to the serial number, was built in Germany in 1930, and that would make it a Model 1 Leica, one of the very first models ever made. Now you might be looking at this saying, no, that's not a Model 1, that's a Model 2. That's a Model 2D. And in essence, you would be right. And I will be talking about how I found out that this was in fact a Model 1 later in the other video. There we go, in the other video. But what I want to talk about here is the fact that the Leica was the very first successful, commercially successful 35mm film. The fellow who created this particular design was a man named Oscar Barnack, and he worked for the Ernst Lights camera or optics company, excuse me, in Germany, and they came up with this particular design. And one of the hallmarks of the Leica camera is that it is small. I mean, take a look at this one. This one was made, well, in 1960, and you take a look at this one, and this one was made in 1954. They're big, right? They're very large. Now, granted, this is a 4x5 camera, and it's a large format camera, so it would have to be big. But what Oscar Barnack did was he created a camera that used motion picture film, 35mm motion picture film. And his innovation was to go sideways, horizontally, with the film. In this particular instance, the film goes top to bottom, north to south, as it were. Here, in the Leica, for the first time, the camera, or the film goes horizontally across the back. This has a rangefinder. It didn't actually come with a rangefinder built in as a Model 1. This was added on later by the Leica factory. But for the most part, the condition is pretty good. The base plate here has been replaced. However, I do believe that it is an original Leica base plate. And there are certain things on this camera that just don't, well, let's say they're not original. which gave me some pause when I was doing the due diligence on this camera, which again I will talk about in the separate video based just on this camera. But this is a gorgeous camera. Leicas are highly prized in the photography community. This was, again, the very first successful 35mm camera, and they had one Leica earlier than this that a few years ago sold for 14 million euros. Now, granted, it was a very rare Leica. I think it was Leica number 105. This, the serial number on this is 37015, which again puts its manufacturer at 1930. Anyway, if you have any questions about these 4 cameras, we have more coming up. We've got some 35mm Minoltas, some Canons, some Nikons, lots of Polaroids. We have probably every Polaroid camera, at least every model that was made in the 1970s through the 80s here. Those will also be going up for auction if you are a Polaroid fan. But if you have any questions about these cameras, contact us through 345auction.com. You can get onto our auction site. You can also see links to our various social media platforms, and you'll probably see this particular video on one of those social media platforms. So again, thank you for stopping by. If you are a camera collector, we've got some good ones for you. Bye-bye.